A high-class-looking woman sat down next to me on the train. I took in a breath and asked aloud, "What's that smell?" She turned to me, looked down her nose, and said, "Chanel, $500 an ounce." She turned away. About 10 minutes later, I let out a silent fart. She turns to me and asks, "What's that smell?" I say, "Broccoli, $1.49 a pound." A guy was driving for hours. Seems a guy was driving for hours through desolate country when he passed a farmhouse, and before he could react, a cat ran out in front of him and splat! He flattened the cat. Out of kindness and consideration, he stopped, turned around, and drove back to the farmhouse to notify the occupants. When the housewife came to the door, he said, "Pardon me, madame, but I just ran over a cat in front of your house and assumed that it must belong to you. I know this might be hard to hear, but I wanted to let you know instead of just driving off." "Not so fast," says she. "How do you know it was our cat? Could you describe him? What does he look like?" The man promptly flopped down on the ground and said, "He looks like this," as he gave his best shot at a dead cat impression. "Oh no, you horrible man," she replied. "I meant, what did he look like before you hit him?" At that, the man got up, covered his eyes with both hands, and screamed, "Ah!"
Two women go out drinking, and after a heavy night and a lot of alcohol, decide to take a shortcut through the cemetery. Whilst taking the shortcut, they both have the urge to pee, so they duck down behind the gravestones and pee. They realize they have nothing to wipe with, so the first woman decides to use her pants and leaves them there. The second woman was luckier. She found a bouquet of flowers and unwrapped them and used the ribbon. The next evening, their two husbands are out for a drink together. The first husband says, "I think my wife is having an affair." "What makes you say that?" asks the second man. "Well, you know, she was out last night. She came home without her knickers." The second man says, "You think you've got problems. My wife came home and there was a card tucked in her crack that read, 'Missing you already,' from all of the lads at the fire station."
Two salesmen were going door to door and knocked on the door of a woman who was not happy to see them. She told them in uncertain terms that she did not want to hear their offer and slammed the door in their faces. To her surprise, however, the door did not close and, in fact, bounced back open. She tried again, really put her back into it and slammed the door again with the same result. The door bounced back open. Convinced these rude people were sticking their foot in the door, she reared back to give it a slam that would teach them a lesson when one of them said, "Ma'am, before you do that again, you need to move your cat."
A blonde walked into a diner and ordered a cup of coffee. When she gets her drink, she notices that it has a contest game piece on the side of the cup. She peels off the sticker and instantly starts screaming, "I want a motorhome!" She continues shouting, "I want a motorhome!" until the waitress decides to get her boss. "What's the problem here?" the manager asks. "I want a motorhome!" she shouts again. "That's impossible," he replies. "We didn't give out motorhomes." She says, "Well, it says so on this sticker." The boss takes the sticker and reads it. It says, "Win a bagel." "How did it happen?" the doctor asked Bonta as he set Bonta's broken leg. "Well, doctor, 15 years ago, never mind the past. Tell me how you broke your leg this morning." Like I was saying, 15 years ago, when I first started working on the farm, that night, right after I'd gone to bed, the farmer's beautiful daughter came into my room. She asked me if there was anything I wanted. I said, "No, everything is fine." "Are you sure?" she asked. "I'm sure," I said. "Isn't there anything I can do for you?" she wanted to know. "I reckon not," I replied. "Excuse me," said the doctor, "what the hell does this story have to do with your broken leg?" "Well, this morning," Bonta explained, "when it dawned on me what she meant, I fell off the roof." The two young lovers went to bed for the first time. The girl was reluctant to have full-on sex, but the guy said, "Okay, but just let me put it in a little bit." She agreed, but once he got inside, he became excited and went all the way in. "Wow, that feels great," said the girl. "You can put it all the way in now." "No," said the quick-thinking boy. "A deal's a deal." Husband is in a good mood. "Darling, remember 25 years ago, I had a rented one-room apartment, a table fan, a black and white TV, and a cycle to use. But at night, I used to sleep beside a 25-years-old beautiful girl. Now I own a luxurious bungalow with 4 LED TVs, a limousine, and Porsche servants. But I sleep with a 50-years-old woman. Wife, don't worry. Just find yourself a 25-years-old beautiful woman, and I will make sure that you go back to your one-room rented apartment, table fan, black and white TV, and cycle." On a sunny afternoon, 2 elderly gentlemen were sitting on a park bench, basking in the warm rays and enjoying the day. Their conversation flowed easily, touching upon memories of the past and enjoying the present. Suddenly, their attention was caught by a young woman jogging by. She was dressed in a sports bra and tiny shorts, her athletic figure and youthful energy standing out against the calm backdrop of the park. One of the men, charmed by the sight, couldn't help but smile broadly. Noticing his reaction, the young woman stopped and walked over to them, her expression a mix of curiosity and annoyance. "Why are you staring at me and grinning, you pervert?" she demanded, hands on her hips. The older man, maintaining his warm smile, looked up at her and replied sweetly, "My dear, I'm not smiling at you. I'm smiling at the thought that no matter how bad the world gets, there will always be young, pretty girls in the summer to cheer up a lonely old man." The girl replies, "Aw, you are so sweet," and leans towards the old man and gives him a kiss on the cheek and continues about her jog. The old man turns to his friend and says, "3 to zip, Mugly, your turn." This joke serves as yet another proof that the elderly, having been part of this world for many years, are often wiser than the rest of us. A farmer decided he wanted to go to town and see a movie. As he approached, the ticket agent asked, "Sir, what's that on your shoulder?" The old farmer said, "That's my pet rooster, Chuck. Wherever I go, Chuck goes." "I'm sorry, sir," said the ticket agent. "We can't allow animals in the theater." The old farmer went around the corner and stuffed Chuck down his overalls. Then he returned to the booth, bought a ticket, and entered the theater. He sat down next to 2 old widows named Mildred and Marge. The movie started, and the rooster began to squirm. The old farmer unbuttoned his fly so Chuck could stick his head out and watch the movie. "Marge," whispered Mildred. "What?" said Marge. "I think the guy next to me is a pervert." "What makes you think so?" asked Marge. "He undid his pants and he has his thing out," whispered Mildred. Don't worry about it," said Marge. "At our age, we've seen 'em all." "I thought so too," said Mildred, "but this one's eating my popcorn."
A London solicitor rang one of his wealthiest clients. "Sir, I'm afraid I've got some good news and some rather awkward news." The client sighed. "It's been one of those days. Let's start with the good." "Well," said the solicitor, "I had a meeting with your wife this afternoon. She's just spent $5,000 on a couple of photographs she's convinced will fetch somewhere between 15 and 20 million. The client perked up immediately. "Marvelous! I always said she had an eye for an investment. That's absolutely made my day. Right then, what's the bad news?" There was a brief silence. "The photographs," said the solicitor carefully, "are of you with your secretary."
I got cut off by a taxi driver last week. I was walking through town today and saw him at the back of the queue at the taxi rank. I got in the first taxi in the queue and said, "How much to the station?" $5, said the driver. "And how much for a blowjob?" I asked him. "That's disgusting," he said. "Get out of my cab." I got in the second taxi and said, "How much to the station?" $5, said the driver. And how much for a blowjob? I asked him. I'm not having any of that, he said. Get out of my cab. I worked my way down the line, getting thrown out of each taxi in turn until I came to my target at the back of the queue. How much to the station? $5, said the driver. Okay, I said. Let's go. As we pulled out and overtook the other taxis, I wound the window down and gave all the other drivers a thumbs up with a big grin on my face. A teenage boy and his father were on their very first trip to America from their small hometown in Mexico. While exploring a shopping mall, they were amazed by almost everything, but especially by two shiny silver doors that would slide apart and then close again. The boy asks, "Father, what is this?" The father replied, having never seen an elevator, "Son, I have never seen anything like this in my life. I have no idea what it is." As they watched in fascination, an older lady in a wheelchair rolled up to the doors and pressed a button. The doors opened, she went inside, and the doors closed behind her. The father and son stared as the numbers above the doors began to light up, going higher and higher. After a moment, the numbers began lighting up in reverse order. Finally, the doors opened again, and out stepped an absolutely stunning young blonde woman. The father, without taking his eyes off her, leaned toward his son and whispered, "Quick, go get your mother." A mechanic was removing a cylinder head from the motor of a motorcycle when he spotted a well-known heart surgeon in his shop. The surgeon was there waiting for the service manager to come take a look at his bike. The mechanic shouted across the garage, "Hey, Doc, can I ask you a question?" The surgeon, a bit surprised, walked over to the mechanic working on the motorcycle. The mechanic straightened up, wiped his hands on a rag, and asked, "So, Doc, look at this engine. I open its heart, take valves out, fix them, and put them back in, and when I finish, it works just like new. So how come I get such a small salary and you get the really big bucks when you and I are doing basically the same work?" The surgeon paused, smiled, and leaned over and whispered to the mechanic, "Try doing it with the engine running." Two guys are out hiking. All of a sudden, a bear starts chasing them. They climb a tree, but the bear starts climbing up the tree after them. The first guy gets his sneakers out of his knapsack and starts putting them on. The second guy says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I figure when the bear gets close to us, we'll jump down and make a run for it." The second guy says, "Are you crazy? You can't outrun a bear." The first guy says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I only have to outrun you." A guy was known among his friends to be very brief and to the point. He really never said too much. One day, a saleswoman knocked on his door and asked to see his wife, so the guy told her that she wasn't home. "Well," the woman said, "could I please wait for her?" The man directed her to the drawing room and left her there for more than 3 hours. After feeling really worried, she called out for him and asked, "May I ask where your wife is?" She went to the cemetery," he replied. "And when is she coming back?" "I don't really know," he said. "She's been there 11 years now." A depressed man walks into a bar and sits down. He looks at the bartender and says, "Give me 6 double brandies." The bartender raises an eyebrow. "Rough day?" "You could say that," the man sighs. "I just found out my dad is gay." The next day, the same man returns looking even more dejected. He orders another 6 double brandies. The bartender shakes his head. "Back again? What happened this time?" With a deep sigh, the man replies, "I just found out my son is gay too." On the third day, the man stumbles in once more, looking completely defeated. Again, he orders 6 double brandies. The bartender, now genuinely concerned, leans in and asks, "Geez, man, does anyone in your family like women?" The man downs his drink and mutters, "Yeah, my wife." This guy walks into a bar to get some drinks. The bartender named Dave walks up to him and says, "You look happy today. What happened?"
The guy says, "Well, Dave, I was waxing my boat, just waxing, and this brunette with tits out to here," the guy gestures a B cup, walks up to me and says, "Is that your boat?" I said, "Uh-huh." She said, "Want to take me for a ride?" I said, "Uh-huh." So I took her out, Dave. I took her way out. And I said, "You have sex with me or you swim." The next day, the guy's looking all happy again and is bouncing around the bar, so Dave walks up to him and says, "You look happy today. What happened today?" The guy says, "Well, Dave, I was waxing my boat, just waxing, and this redhead with tits out to here." The guy gestures a C cup, walks up to me and says, "Is that your boat?" I said, "Uh-huh." She said, "Want to take me for a ride?" I said, "Uh-huh." So I took her out, Dave. I took her way out. And I said, "You have sex with me or you swim." On the third day, the guy is depressed, ordering extra shots and just miserable. So Dave walks up to him and says, "Well, you had 2 good days, and now it looks like you're having a bad day. What happened today?" The guy says, "Well, Dave, I was waxing my boat, just waxing, and this blonde with tits out to here." The guy gestures a D cup, walks up to me and says, "Is that your boat?" I said, "Uh-huh." She said, "Want to take me for a ride?" I said, "Uh-huh." So I took her out, Dave. I took her way out. And I said, "You have sex with me or you swim." At this point, the guy looks Dave straight in the eyes and says, "And Dave, when she pulled down her pants, she had a dick. And Dave, I can't swim, Dave." The old man walks into a bar, sits down, and orders a beer. The bartender serves his beer and then asks him, "So what do you do?" The old man replies, "Well, sir, I'm a cowboy." "Wow," said the bartender. "What exactly does a cowboy do?" "Well, sir, I work on a ranch all day, I ride horses and herd cattle, and I take care of the land and all the animals on the ranch." "That's very interesting," said the bartender. After a while, a beautiful woman walks into the bar, sits down next to the cowboy, and orders a drink. "Well," said the bartender, "what do you do?" With the old man listening in, the woman says, "Well, sir, I'm a lesbian." "Interesting," said the bartender. "What exactly is a lesbian?" "Well, I wake up in the morning thinking about women, I eat breakfast thinking about women, I go through my day thinking about women. I'm constantly thinking about women." "Interesting," says the bartender. Some time passes, and the old man leaves that bar and goes to another bar. He sits down and orders a beer, and the bartender says, "So, sir, what do you do?" The old man looks at him and says, "Well, this morning I was a cowboy, but to tell you the truth, now I think I'm a lesbian." A priest goes to the barber shop and asks how much a trim would cost. The barber answers, "Oh, you're a holy man. I can't charge anything." He gives the priest a trim. The priest thanks him and leaves. The next day, the barber finds some gold coins on his doorstep. After a few weeks, an imam comes to the shop. He asks the barber how much it would cost for a beard trim and waxing. The barber answers, "You're a holy man. I simply could not ask you to pay anything." The imam thanks him for the service and leaves. The next day, the barber finds some gold coins on his doorstep. A few weeks pass, and a rabbi comes to the store and asks how much a haircut would be. The barber tells him, "I could not charge you anything, as you are a holy man." The rabbi thanks him and leaves. The next day, the barber finds 12 rabbis in a line on his doorstep. A man held up a lemon and squeezed it completely dry. "If anyone can get even 1 drop from this lemon," he said, "I'll give them $100. One by one, people tried. No juice. Finally, a man stepped forward and squeezed out 2 drops. Stunned, the first man asked, "Who are you?" The man replied calmly, "An income tax officer." Little Billy was at the local supermarket with his father. Little Billy got tired of walking, so his dad let him sit on his shoulders. As they walked, Billy started pulling his dad's hair. His dad asked him to stop numerous times, but he kept on.
Eventually, little Billy's dad got really annoyed and said, "Son, stop that immediately." "But Daddy," he replied, "I'm just trying to get my chewing gum back." A Nazi walks into a bar. He goes up to the bartender and looks around, seeing an older Jewish man sitting in a corner. He turns to the bartender and announces loudly, "A round of beer for everyone except that Jew over there." The Nazi turns to the Jew, smiling nastily, and is surprised to see him smiling warmly back. Somewhat miffed, the Nazi turns back to the bartender and says, "A round of your sweetest wine for everyone here except that Jew." Once again, while everyone is cheering, he turns back to the Jew, grinning evilly, but is shocked to see the Jew still smiling warmly, and even inclined his head in the Nazi's direction. The Nazi turns to bartender and says as loud as he could through gritted teeth, "A bottle of your most expensive drink for everyone in this bar except for that Jew." The Nazi, satisfied, turns around chuckling to himself and freezes, gobsmacked, seeing the Jew smiling broadly at him and waving. Furiously, the Nazi turns back to the bartender and says, "What the hell is wrong with that Jew? Is he crazy or just plain stupid?" The bartender replies, "Neither. He's the owner of the bar." Sophie asks a taxi driver, "How much does it cost to take me to the airport?" $250. "What if we take my husband too?" "Same $250. Sophie turns to her husband, "Haven't I told you, you are actually worthless?" "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm looking for a book about being psychic." "No. One day that will work."